Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know first $380 billion in data center spending is creating a gold rush for legacy tech, with hard drive and memory stocks soaring over 300%. We'll explore how this massive infrastructure spend could transform the entire tech supply chain and create a new class of hardware winners. Second, Google Gemini's ad magic clashes with reality as a real-world test reveals bizarre outputs and a digital doppelganger safety risk. In this episode, we'll break down this critical AI reality gap and what it signals for consumer trust and future platform development. Third, a federal judge blocked Texas's App Store age verification law, exposing a Silicon Valley battle over shifting legal liability between platforms and app stores. We'll analyze why this ruling is a turning point for tech regulation and how it could affect the growing balkanization of the American internet. Fourth, the US delayed tariffs on Chinese legacy chips until 2027, a strategic move to buy time for its own CHIPS Act ambitions. This discussion will reveal how this delay connects to the broader US-China tech rivalry and what it means for the future of global chip supply chains. Fifth, Novo Nordisk's breakthrough oral weight loss pill received FDA approval, poised to disrupt the multi-billion-dollar injectable drug market with new technology. Today, we'll take a closer look at this breakthrough medical technology and its implications for the future of treating chronic diseases. Now, get this. While everyone was watching Nvidia, investors betting on the other parts of the AI, boom, saw their money more than triple this year. A while back, we talked about how the financing spigot swung wide open. Data center debt issuance nearly doubled to about $182 billion, and today we're seeing exactly where that money's going. The reason is a single jaw-dropping number. The four biggest tech companies are projecting a collective expenditure of $380 billion on data centers and infrastructure this year alone. We previously analyzed how hyperscalers are shifting the risk off their own balance sheets by tapping debt and private capital, fueling this pace without crushing their profit and loss, and how that's created a new landlord class as private equity buys up operators in deal volumes that some reports say hit 80 to 90% of transactions since 2022. That number is so huge, it has some analysts asking if this is a sustainable new era of investment or if it looks more like the telecom equipment frenzy during the dot-com bubble. For now, the spending is real. That spending has triggered an absolute feeding frenzy for the companies that build the guts of these AI factories. Take Lumentum, a California company that makes parts for fiber optic cables. Its stock has exploded, jumping 372%. Then there's Western Digital, a 55-year-old hard drive manufacturer. Its shares have rocketed up nearly 300%, with its rival Seagate right behind at 231%. As we noted when we walked through that private equity-driven construction boom, those massive build-out orders cascade straight down the supply chain to names like these. So, you might be wondering, in an age of super fast solid-state drives, why are these old-school mechanical hard drives making a comeback? The secret, believe it or not, comes down to cost. When you're storing the colossal datasets needed to train AI models, price is everything. Enterprise hard drives cost as little as 2 cents per gigabyte, while the faster SSDs can be 5 times more expensive. For the hyperscalers, that cost difference is a game changer, making these decades-old drives absolutely essential. But that's not the whole picture. The true bottleneck might be physical. You see, these AI data centers consume an insane amount of electricity and water for cooling. We previously flagged that a single large campus can draw as much power as a small city, and some forecasts see total data center electricity use more than doubling by 2030 with AI as the number one driver. So the International Energy Agency's projection that data centers could hit nearly 3% of global electricity by then fits the broader picture. We're already seeing power companies like Georgia Power planning to spend over $16 billion just to keep up with data center demand in their state. That helps explain why one S&P global analyst told us he wouldn't be surprised if already high valuations go even higher. Limited energy supply can slow new construction and make existing sites more valuable. And remember, the US is pulling ahead here. We've talked about how it holds over half of global hyperscale capacity, while Europe lags far behind, weighed down by higher energy costs and stricter rules. This creates a whole new gold rush for companies in the power grid, and industrial cooling sectors. The AI boom has created a worldwide shortage of high-performance memory. Micron, the only major memory producer in the US, is now up 241%. A few days ago, we mentioned 9-figure enterprise AI deals, finally showing up exactly the kind of real demand that keeps HBM sold out and lead times stretched. So, the thing is, Micron being the only major US producer of this critical high bandwidth memory, or HBM, has huge implications for national strategy. The US is otherwise heavily reliant on South Korean firms like Samsung and SK Hynix. This is why the federal government is stepping in, granting Micron over $6 billion from the CHIPS Act to build new factories right here in the US and secure that supply chain. The demand is so extreme that its business chief said the company is, quote, more than sold out of its memory chips. Micron even shuttered its consumer-focused product line just to save supply for AI. This prompted analysts at Morgan Stanley to declare that Micron's results showed the best revenue and profit upside in the history of the US semis industry, with the single exception of Nvidia. Continuing our last discussion about market fragility, remember when just a rumor about a single $10 billion data center deal involving Oracle potentially getting cancelled sent that stock down 5% and tugged on Broadcom, Nvidia, and AMD? That's how tightly sentiment is tied to this infrastructure build-out. The core conflict is simple. AI needs a staggering amount of data, storage, and connectivity. Every GPU needs to connect to every other GPU. Every data center needs to connect to other data centers. As we've discussed before, that's why some analysts see echoes of the dark fiber era, only this time the twist is the off-balance sheet financing and the hard power cap that could throttle supply even if demand stays hot. This frantic build-out is creating a gold rush for the companies providing the essential hardware. It shows the true scale of the AI revolution isn't just measured in brand new chips, but in the surging value of the decades-old technologies that form its foundation. We've been talking about the massive hardware build-out for AI, but now let's shift to the software side where things are getting complicated. Google's new ad for its Gemini AI shows a magical tool that saves the day when a child's favorite toy is lost. But when a parent tried to recreate it for real, the results were an absolute bombshell. This experience highlights a huge and often overlooked issue in the tech world right now, the reality gap. That's the massive difference between the smooth, emotionally perfect AI we see in commercials and the often clunky, unpredictable, and frustrating tool you actually get to use. It's not just this one ad. In another Gemini ad, Google had to remove a claim that Gouda cheese accounts for over half of global cheese consumption because, well, it was just flat out wrong. This is why industry groups are now scrambling to create ethical guidelines for AI advertising, pushing for transparency over illusion. The mission was simple: use Gemini to identify a beloved stuffed animal and buy a replacement, just like in the commercial. Instead of a quick answer, the AI produced a bizarre 1,800-word essay detailing its search. It got lost in a spiral of confusion with Gemini's own internal monologue, including the phrases, "I am considering the puppy hypothesis," and "I'm now back in the rabbit hole." What you're actually seeing is the AI's chain of thought. To solve complex problems, engineers prompt the AI to think out loud and break the problem down into steps. This can improve accuracy, but the side effect is this. You get these long, bizarre, and sometimes nonsensical internal monologues. It's a trade-off. You can get a more reasoned answer, but you might have to wade through the AI's entire weird thought process to find it. In the end, Gemini essentially gave up, suggesting to check eBay. The parent found the toy on their own in 20 minutes with a simple Google search. And this gets to a really fascinating tension happening inside Google itself. Think about it. The new, flashy generative AI, Gemini, failed at a classic search task, but the old, reliable Google search succeeded in minutes. As Google pushes AI overviews into its search results, we're seeing some strange effects. Research shows these AI summaries can push the normal organic search results so far down the page that you have to scroll multiple times to find them. And click-through rates for some types of queries have dropped by over 30%. There's a real question of whether this new generative tech is helping or actually cannibalizing the core search business that made Google famous. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. The ad shows parents rapidly creating videos of the toy on an adventure. The reality check: Gemini has a limit of just 3 generated videos per day, meaning the ads montage would have taken days to create, and it required careful, repeated prompting to get anything close to the desired result. Then came the moment that set off alarm bells. The parent prompted the AI to create a video of the toy speaking directly to their child using the child's name. The result was so unsettling. The parent's reaction was, "Nope, absolutely not. No, thank you." An AI-generated character addressing a child by name was a line they refused to cross. And that parent's gut reaction is backed by some serious psychological concerns, leading to what experts are calling the digital doppelganger dilemma. It feels so creepy because creating AI companions that mimic beloved objects and speak to children can actually impair their development of real-world social skills. It can create unhealthy emotional dependencies and confuse them about the nature of relationships. What's also happening here is a technical failure of the AI's safety systems. The AI likely has guardrails that use object detection to block the creation of a video if it sees a child's face in an image. But those same systems often can't understand the context of audio, like a voice speaking a specific name. It's a loophole that reveals the limits of current AI safety, which struggles with anything more complex than simply identifying what's in a picture. The final verdict is a stark contrast to the slick commercial. The ad presents a seamless, intuitive AI partner. The reality is a tool that requires significant time, careful prompting, and multiple attempts to get it right. It reveals that the magic shown on screen isn't effortless. It's a carefully edited illusion that hides the immense user effort required behind the scenes. Speaking of platform responsibility and unintended consequences, a major legal battle is brewing in Texas. A federal judge just compared a new state law to requiring every bookstore to verify the age of every customer at the door. And with that single powerful analogy, he blocked it. To understand the stakes, you have to look beyond the inconvenience. The judge is pointing to the unintended consequences of this kind of broad restriction. Think about it. If a teen can't enter the bookstore of the internet without parental approval for every single app, they could be blocked from life-saving resources. The Trevor Project reports that many LGBTQ+ youth live in non-affirming homes. For them, a private app or website might be the only safe place to find community, support, or mental health resources. Forcing parental consent could expose them to rejection or even homelessness. So this isn't just about blocking bad content, it could also block access to essential help. The law is the Texas App Store Accountability Act. It would have forced Apple and Google to verify the age of every user for every app on every phone in the state. A tech industry group, which includes Apple and Google, immediately sued, calling the law a broad censorship regime. What many might not know is that the Texas law represents what experts call a data-heavy model. To comply, app stores might have had to collect incredibly sensitive information from every single user, adult or child. We're talking about things like scans of government IDs or facial recognition analysis, all just to download an app. This creates a massive database of personal information that is vulnerable to breaches and raises huge privacy flags for everyone. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. We're seeing platforms like Meta, Snap, and X lobbying for this exact model, while at the same time, Apple and Google are fighting it tooth and nail. This isn't just corporate hypocrisy. It's a brilliant and strategic battle over liability. By pushing for App Store level age verification, content platforms like Meta are trying to shift the legal responsibility upstream. If Apple and Google become the gatekeepers, then Meta can argue that any failure to protect minors is the App Store's fault, not theirs. It's a multi-billion-dollar game of passing the buck. The battle is getting personal. The stakes are so high that Apple CEO Tim Cook reportedly called Texas Governor Greg Abbott directly to try and stop him from signing the bill into law. It didn't work then, but the courts have now intervened. This isn't just a Texas showdown. This ruling is the first major blow against a wave of similar laws passed in Utah and Louisiana, and it comes just as Congress considers its own national version. The outcome here could set the precedent for the entire country. The ruling is critical because it pushes back against the so-called balkanization of the American internet, where each state has its own rules. This patchwork of regulations creates chaos for developers, especially small businesses. The Information Technology and Innovation Foundation estimates that trying to comply with 50 different state privacy laws could cost the US economy over $1 trillion over the next decade, with small businesses hit the hardest. This growing mess is why you hear so many people saying a single, clear federal law is inevitable. The judge found that the law likely violates the First Amendment, stating that even if the goal is to protect kids, the method is unconstitutional. His point was that the government must use the least restrictive means to achieve its goal, and this law wasn't it. After all, there are other ways to do this. California, for example, passed a law that allows users to simply self-report their age during device setup. And new privacy-preserving technologies are emerging, like on-device facial age estimation, which can verify if a user is over 18 without ever storing their photo or personal data. These are the less restrictive options the judge was talking about. He delivered a blunt final assessment. However widespread the agreement that the issue must be addressed, the court remains bound by the rule of law. From domestic tech regulation to the global stage, the US just made a surprising move in its tech rivalry with China. The story begins with a decision that caught everyone by surprise. After a year-long investigation found China is using, quote, aggressive and sweeping non-market policies to dominate the semiconductor industry, the US responded, and the new tariff rate on Chinese chips is 0. That's not a mistake. For the next 18 months, there will be 0 tariffs on these critical components. Now, it's crucial to understand we're not just talking about the cutting-edge, super-fast chips in the latest smartphones. The real battleground here is for what are called legacy or mature node semiconductors. These are the workhorse chips that are in absolutely everything: your car, your microwave, your washing machine, and all kinds of industrial equipment. This bombshell decision comes directly from a new filing by the Office of the US Trade Representative, which simultaneously accused China of targeting the chip sector for decades in an attempt to achieve dominance. And that attempt at dominance is very, very real. Let me give you some numbers to put this in perspective. According to market research from TrendForce, China's share of manufacturing capacity for these legacy chips is already at 34% this year. By 2027, it's projected to surpass Taiwan, the current world leader. That's a serious threat because it would give one country an incredible amount of control over the global supply chain for everyday goods. So what's the real story behind this whiplash? This investigation, which began under the Biden administration, has now resulted in a decision by the Trump administration to delay any new tariffs until at least June 2027. That 2027 date is not random. It aligns directly with the goals of the US CHIPS Act. Essentially, the US is buying time. The CHIPS Act is pumping billions of dollars into building new semiconductor factories right here in the US, with at least $2 billion specifically earmarked for these exact kinds of legacy chips. This delay is a strategic buffer, giving those new American fabs time to get built and running before the market is flooded with potentially underpriced Chinese imports. It's a move designed to de-escalate the simmering trade war and cool hostilities between the two superpowers. It follows a recent truce reached between US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping, which saw the US slash some tariffs in exchange for China, allowing exports of rare earth metals. But make no mistake, this isn't a white flag, it's a strategic pivot. This delay gives American firms who were bracing for massive supply chain chaos, desperately needed clarity and stability, and more importantly, it weaponizes the threat of future tariffs, turning them into a massive bargaining chip for any future negotiations. And it's a two-way street. This 3-year warning shot doesn't just give the US leverage, it gives China a strategic runway. You can bet that Beijing is now going to double down on its own plans. They have a stated goal of reaching 70% chip self-sufficiency by 2027, and they've already got a $70 billion incentive program to make it happen. So while the US holds a threat in reserve, China is racing to make that threat irrelevant. If talks break down, those tariffs can be brought back with a vengeance. The core conflict over who controls the future of technology is far from over. This is a high-stakes chess move. The US has publicly drawn its battle lines and called out its rival, but for now, it's choosing to hold its fire, keeping its most powerful economic weapon in reserve for the long game ahead. The long game here is critical because it's pushing us towards what experts call a hardware splinternet, a decoupling of the global tech ecosystem into two competing spheres, one aligned with the US and one with China. Imagine a future where companies and consumers have to navigate separate, potentially incompatible hardware supply chains. The long-term consequences could be higher prices, reduced innovation, and a fundamental break in the global system we've relied on for decades. That's what's truly at stake here. That chess match over chips isn't the only move the US is making. Just today, the government sent shockwaves through the tech world, banning all new model drone imports. The reason given was national security risks, and the market reaction was immediate. Now, when they say national security risks, the concern isn't just theoretical. It's about the potential for espionage, surveillance, and even cyber attacks through these unmanned aircraft. And the scale of this is staggering. The Chinese manufacturer DJI, for example, accounts for a massive 77% of the entire US drone market. Think about that for a second. That means for every 4 drones in the sky, 3 are likely from one company that is now being targeted. This is why it's such a big deal. The US drone industry, with companies like Skydio, currently only makes up about 6% of drone registrations. So the big question now is whether our domestic industry can possibly scale up to fill that enormous technological and manufacturing gap. American drone manufacturers are soaring with unusual machines, rocketing up nearly 8% and AeroVironment rising more than 2%. But while one sector celebrates, another is seeing a bizarre reaction to a massive deal. Software giant ServiceNow announced it's buying a cybersecurity startup, Armis, for an incredible $7.75 billion. So, why the nearly $8 billion price tag? Armis specializes in something most companies are terrible at, securing unmanaged devices. Think about all the smart TVs, security cameras, printers, and even factory machinery connected to a company's network. These are called IoT and OT devices, and they represent a massive, unprotected backdoor for hackers. The market for securing these devices is exploding, projected to be worth over $140 billion by 2030. ServiceNow is essentially paying a premium to buy the best-in-class solution for closing one of the biggest unsolved cybersecurity risks in the world. Instead of cheering, investors sent ServiceNow's own stock down nearly 3% on the news. And the turbulence doesn't stop there. What really brought this day's market news to a head was the drug maker Novo Nordisk, whose stock exploded up 8%. The reason: it just received FDA approval for the first ever oral GLP-1 weight loss pill. Here's where it gets interesting. Turning an injectable drug into a pill is one of the holy grails of medicine. The challenge is that our stomach acid usually destroys these complex protein-based drugs, but Novo Nordisk is using a breakthrough technology called SNAC. You can think of SNAC as a special protective shield that gets bundled with the drug. It temporarily neutralizes the stomach acid right around the pill, allowing the active ingredient, semaglutide, to be safely absorbed into the bloodstream. And the implications are huge, because this technology could revolutionize how we treat dozens of other chronic diseases that currently require painful injections. In a statement, the CEO called it a new convenient treatment option that could completely reshape the multi-billion-dollar obesity drug market. This news is creating a tidal wave. It's not just about Novo Nordisk. Rival companies that are also developing oral medications, like Structure Therapeutics, surged 6% as the entire sector prepares for a new gold rush. Even mining stocks are rallying, with Freeport, McMoran, Foran Mining, and Taseko Mines all up nearly 3% as gold, silver, and copper hit fresh record highs. But not everyone is riding the wave. In a move that's raising eyebrows, software company Asana tumbled more than 6%. The drop came right after its own chief operating officer, Anne Raimondi, disclosed she sold more than 160,000 of her shares.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.